Good morning, Europe. It is Thursday, the 8th of September. I'm Helena Humphrey, and here are your top stories.
The chase is finally over. The last suspect charged with Canada's mass stabbing has died after he was captured by police in Saskatchewan. You'll freeze. Russian President Vladimir Putin warns the EU not to put a price cap on Russian gas, which is due to be discussed today by the bloc's energy ministers. And it's getting hot in Buenos Aires. As the International Tango Festival and Championship begins, it's expected to draw over 1,500 dancers. The manhunt for a suspect in Canada's mass stabbing has ended with his death after he was captured by police. Footage from the scene showed a white SUV apparently run off the road and surrounded by officers and their vehicles near Rosthern town in Saskatchewan. 32-year-old Miles Sanderson is said to have died from self-inflicted wounds. His brother's body, Damien, was found on Monday.
Shortly after his arrest, he went into medical distress. Nearby, EMS were called by police to attend the scene, and he was transported to a hospital in Saskatoon. He was pronounced deceased at the hospital.
Sanderson had been facing multiple murder charges for his alleged role in a knife attack that devastated the James Smith Cree Nation, an indigenous community, and the nearby village of Weldon. 10 people died in the attacks and 18 more were wounded. The rampage ranks as among the worst acts of mass violence in Canada's modern history.
Energy companies will need to make some contributions to help with the energy crisis and high energy bills for citizens. This is one piece of the emergency measures proposed by the European Commission to deal with astronomical prices for electricity. Brussels wants fossil fuel companies to reroute part of their unexpected profits to a solidarity contribution to relieve the impact on vulnerable households. There's also to be a cap on revenues of companies producing electricity with low production costs, like renewables and nuclear.
So, good afternoon. It is now time for the consumers to benefit from the low costs of low carbon sources, like, for example, the renewables. We will propose to rechannel these unexpected profits. We channel them to the member states so that the member states can support the vulnerable households and vulnerable companies.
According to the proposal, a liquidity fund for energy companies should be created to help them face the volatility of the market. But moreover, the European Commission wants to cut Russian revenues by putting a price cap on Russian pipeline gas imports.
We all know that our sanctions are deeply grinding into the Russian economy with a heavy negative impact. But Putin is partially buffering through fossil fuel revenues. So here the objective is we must cut Russia's revenues, which Putin uses to finance his atrocious war in Ukraine.
The EU has reduced its gas imports from Russia from 40% before the war to 9% today, but Russia is still getting some revenue. Meanwhile, Brussels also wants to impose mandatory targets for peak demand hours. All the measures will be discussed on Friday by EU energy ministers. Shona Murray, Euronews, Brussels.
Well, EU member states are mulling over some of the proposals put forward by the European Commission aimed at targeting the ongoing energy crisis. Some of the proposals include a price cap on Russian gas, something that's not without its risks, although we did hear that the EU has reduced from 40% to 9% its reliance on Russian gas in the last few months. Another proposal deals with a revenue cap on electricity companies generating electricity from low-cost sources like renewables, like nuclear. And another proposal, the mandatory cut in consumption of energy, which is something that member states would have to work out for themselves. Now, we'll hear from energy ministers from each member state on Friday, where they convene here in Brussels for an emergency meeting. Shona Murray, Euronews, Brussels.
As fears heighten that Europe is plunging deeper into an energy crisis, could this be a sign of the future? Denmark is preparing for a slightly dimmer Christmas this year to counteract soaring costs. Street lighting will be subdued, if not switched off. In some places, local authorities are even considering cutting Christmas lights and annual ice skating.
It's beautiful in the month of December here, and it would be a shame if that is where we are going to save. And we have a big Christmas tree on the main square with lights on as well.
Schools and other public buildings are set to have their thermostats turned down. Even 1 degree cooler can make a difference to energy bills.
If you had turned it down to 16 degrees, we would have been sitting in here with hats and gloves on. But 1 degree less, I don't think that makes a big difference.
Lights like these could be switched off between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. if public safety allows for it. Research shows that cutting streetlight use by 1 hour per day could save around €40,000 per year in an average town.
Ukrainians in the heavily shelled city of Kramatorsk are getting ready for the freezing temperatures of winter. The gas was cut off in May in the Donetsk region, which is partly controlled by Russian forces, and in the neighbouring occupied Lugansk region after damage to infrastructure. Residents have been reduced to scavenging for firewood.
We are worrying quite a lot because the winter is going to be very hard. It will be uncomfortable for us.
Preparations are also underway for underground bunkers where they can huddle together to keep warm. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had called for mandatory evacuation of civilians from the Donetsk region in July, both to avoid the fighting and ahead of the winter season. A stack of wood ovens have been bought by the city, ready to be delivered to residents. Elsewhere, the director of a local hospital fears she won't be able to keep the sick warm as supply shortages bite.
I am worried a lot because a healthy person can feel comfortable in different conditions, but a sick person requires a specific temperature. They need warmth during treatment, operations and checkups.
Despite the hardships, locals say they're standing strong.
NASA's James Webb Space Telescope has captured thousands of never-before-seen young stars in the Tarantula Nebula stellar nursery. The young stars were previously shrouded from view by cosmic dust. Astronomers are using the telescope to take a closer look at the region and determine the chemical makeup of a prominent older star and its surrounding gas.
Even if just for a day, the world's oldest film festival in Venice took a pause from the showbiz glitz and glamour, holding a Ukraine Day. It was in support of artists from the war-torn country and to increase the awareness of the plight of the Ukrainian people. Several actors had already shown their solidarity with Ukraine, with Tilda Swinton dyeing her hair a bright yellow as half of the Ukrainian flag. With the film Freedom on Fire, Ukraine's fight for freedom being part of a day of events, crew members met with photographers to get their views across. For critic Deborah Young, the influence of film goes beyond mere entertainment.
You can go to a film festival, you can see a movie about a country, and it's not the news footage that we're seeing every day on our TVs. It's something so personal and so strong and gives you such a different approach and a different idea about what is really happening there. And its effect on the heroine or the hero, its effect on the people in the film creates an emotional bond. I strongly believe that film can change the world.
The Venice Film Festival runs until September the 10th, when the jury headed by Julianne Moore will award the top Golden Lion Awards to the best films and actors.